Hidden in the darkness of geologic time, beyond the limits of man's imagination, there was an age when the forces of nature carved from earth and rock a vast peninsula and set it like a fulcrum between three continents. For millions upon millions of years, blistering sun and howling gales tore at the rocks and mountains and dry plains and ground them into sand. Inch by restless inch, a desert, harsh and barren, was formed. Warm seas wore away its shores. Time passed, and man set foot upon the land. How long ago, no one really knows. But those who finally inherited this desert, the Bedouins, traced their ancestry to the prophet Abraham. Like the Indians of the American plains, the Bedouins were always a nomadic people. Among their most prized possessions was a breed of horse, a creature so magnificent, its origin, like the origin of the desert itself, is clothed in legends. Legends passed down from father to son in dark tents, generation by generation. And God took a handful of south wind and from it formed the horse, saying, I create thee, O Arabian. To thy forelock I bind victory in battle. On thy back I set a rich spoil and a treasure in thy loins. I establish thee as one of the glories of the earth. I give thee flight without wings. For a time, the Arabian ran wild in the desert. Only the strongest and most intelligent, the swiftest and most disciplined survived. And then the story goes, to Ishmael, son of Abraham, God made a gift of the Arabian horse, and Ishmael was the first to tame and ride him. And from that time on, the fate of the Arabian would be woven into the history of the Western world. A masterwork of form and grace and beauty, an animal as perfect as God in his desert could create. With every culture it entered, the Arabian horse became the subject of myths, the models for art and poetry. But its presence in Western history is beyond myth. The pharaohs of Egypt, Genghis Khan, Alexander, Napoleon, George Washington were among those who praised the Arab breed and shaped the world on horseback. Still, no matter how far he traveled, he retained the characteristics tempered in the desert that made him strong and noble. The tie that bound the Arab to his horse was not material, but spiritual. And to breed the horse true was for the Bedouin a commandment from Mohammed. My blessed companion and friend of my Creator, Ishmael had said, thou wilt never fail me. And so, in the desert, this friend of God, companion of man, was created, and from the desert came the Arabian to the rest of the world. The exodus of the Arabian horse, beginning probably with the pharaohs of Egypt, continued for centuries. A few places and a few people inherited with their love of the Arabian the spirit of the Bedouin, a passion to maintain purity and to breed the ideal, the perfect Arabian horse. During the Crusades, European armies were astonished by the strength, stamina, and beauty of the horses that carried desert warriors into battle. From that time on, kings and noblemen throughout Europe have sought out Arabians, treasured and bred them for show and for battle. It is a passion that has lasted for more than 400 years. In the United States, champions in this century, with few exceptions, trace their ancestry from the desert through three lines: Crabbit, Polish, and Egyptian. This is Crabbett Park in England, as it was 50 or so years ago. Lady Anne and Wilfred Blunt had established here what was to become the most renowned and influential private stud in the world. Lady Anne's personal dedication in obtaining and cultivating the finest desert bloodlines gave us the chief stock for future generations. This was true in England and also in Egypt through her Sheikh Obeid stud, which became the basis for the Royal Agricultural Society, predecessor to the EAO. Her daughter, Lady Wentworth, guided Crabbett through its finest years. Of the great horses, the most influential male lines to American breeding were the Massoud of Abbas Pasha descent and Skowronek, brought from Antonini's stud and purchased by Lady Wentworth in 1920. Within a few years, two sons, Raffles and Racine, were imported to the United States. Their offspring would dominate the show scene in America for many years. Despite the devastation of two world wars, the efforts of dedicated Polish breeders can be seen in lines traced back 150 years. The first introduction of Polish-bred Arabians to this country were the imports of Colonel Dickinson at Traveller's Rest in the 1930s. Following World War II, with the help of General Patton, a number of Polish Arabians were brought to the United States. Among them was Wheates II, one of the three superlative sons of the great stallion Ophir, whose own sire had been bred in the desert. The influence of Arabian horses bred in Egypt had been present in America for half a century. As early as 1932, Henry Babson brought a group of Egyptian-bred horses to this country, which is still influential today. But it was the 1950s and 60s when the most influential horses from Egypt were imported. The most renowned of these were the sons of the legendary stallion Nazir. Skowronek, Ophir, Nazir. Much is owed to them and their offspring, not only in America, but wherever there is a passion to breed the Arabian horses of perfection. At the time Lady Anne Blunt was building Crabbett Park from desert stock, Count Stroganov in Russia established an Arabian stud on his estate in the North Caucasus. Stroganov had fallen in love with Arabians, traveled to the Mideast and purchased some of the finest horses of the day. His desire to breed the perfect horse was so strong that he managed to purchase from Crabbett the Immortal Massoud, the most important stallion of the era. Before the destruction of Stroganov's stud during the Russian Revolution, his horses had a great influence in Europe, and especially Spain, where he sent his great stallions, among them Van Dyck and Ursus. The grant of Massoud to the east was returned upon the acquisition of Skowronek by Crabbett. Although commonly considered Polish, at the time Skowronek was foaled, his pedigree records his birthplace, Antonini stud, was Russian territory. It's not surprising, for Russia is a land with an ancient tradition of great horsemen and breeders. The Cossacks were surely among the most respected and feared horsemen of any age. On the vast steppes, the horse was an essential element of life, a weapon in battle, a source of pride and measure of wealth, a companion in daily existence. The value of Arabian blood was recognized in Russia. Since the time of Ivan the Terrible, Arabs were bred for centuries by a succession of czars and noblemen. Even the upheaval of the revolution could not destroy the desire of Russian horsemen to re-establish their Arabian treasure. In 1922, at Tersk, among rolling hills of the Caucasus, on the site of Count Stroganov's estate, a new state-controlled stud was born. Over the next years, breeders and trainers were brought together and given the resources of the Russian government to create one of the finest Arab stud farms in the world. The present Russian-Arabian purebred stud book dates from 1930. It begins with 6 mares and the stallion Khan, imported from France. In 1936, the weight of the Depression forced Lady Wentworth at Crabbett Park to sell some great Arabian horses. The Tersk stud purchased the best of them, 19 mares and 6 stallions, including Nassim, who Lady Wentworth proclaimed Skowronek's greatest son. 3 years later, Hitler's troops invaded Poland. Polish breeders had but two choices: leave their beloved Arabians to the advancing Nazi army, or give them for evacuation to Russia. 12 of the world's greatest stallions, among them Ophir, were marched east into Russia. Accompanying these stallions were 42 mares from the renowned Janov Podlaski stud, including Gazella II, Tarasha, and Kruzitsa, with her baby, the celebrated Mamona by Ophir. Following the war, 9 more mares of Polish blood came to the North Caucasus from Germany. Tursk now had a good share of the finest Arabians in the world as a foundation. The breeding program was controlled by breeders with a great tradition, knowledge, and devotion to the Arabian horse. Farm records at Tursk are perhaps the most meticulous ever kept. They describe every offspring and form a diary of its progress. Training is rigorous. By the age of 2, colts and fillies begin racing. Every horse is rated by a number system based on conformation, measurements, athletic ability, and bloodline. The culling program is ruthless. Only the finest, the proven champions are kept for breeding. Tursk is designed and dedicated to create the most perfect offspring, the supreme unity of perfection of the greatest Crabbit, Polish, Egyptian, and French lines. The same pure Arabian horse whose ancestors were staked before the tents of Bedouins. By the early 1950s, bloodstock from Tursk began coming back to Poland for regeneration of Arab horse breeding there. The most influential early sire was Nabur, son of Negative, who was in turn the most renowned son of the 87 purebred foals sired by Nassim. Nassim lived at Tursk until the age of 33. In 1954, Nabur had been named reserve champion of the All-Union Exhibition, second only to his sire, Negative, named supreme champion. Nabur was so successful in Poland that Polish breeders finally acquired Negative himself in 1962. The first introduction of the Nassim male line to this country was through his Crabbit-bred grandsons, Serafix in 1950 and Silverdrift in 1962. Serafix, for many years, was the leading sire of champions in America. In 1962, Nabur himself was brought from Poland to America. The record books here imprint the invaluable contributions of this great Russian-bred stallion. The legend of 2 double national champions, Dornaba and Aramis, as well as winners of over 600 championships, proclaim his excellence. While Ophir was evacuated to Russia, his line, through his Polish-bred grandson Bask, has contributed a great chapter to Arab horse breeding in America. Not only was Bask a national champion, but his Gert have won 57 national halter and performance championships. The influence of the magnificent Russian stallion Preboy has already been introduced in America through the Polish-bred sons and daughters of Piatuzok, himself a son of Preboy, bred at Tursk and exported to Poland. As their stock was replenished by Russian blood, Polish breeders reciprocated by sending Arax, the greatest son of the stallion Amurath Sahib, to Tursk. In America, the importance of Amurath Sahib is well known, especially through his daughters, who have produced such immortals as national champions Bask, Dornaba, and Aramis. In 1964, the Egyptian government selected the premier Nazir's son Aswan as a state gift to Russia. Descendants of this superlative horse have already taken prominent roles in American breeding programs. History has yet to write the eventual influence Aswan will have in this country and the world. At Tursk is a foundation of great stallions and mares from French, Crabbit, Polish, and Egyptian stock. Nowhere in the 20th century, maybe ever, have so many immortals of the breed been gathered into one stud. Now, some of the finest offspring of these superior horses have been imported to America and are available to American breeders. Mares of form and grace and beauty, with pedigrees that are a combination of the world's greatest desert horses. From Aswan, Arax, Preboy, Nassim, Ophir. From Aswan, Preboy, Ophir. From Aswan, Preboy, Arax, Nassim. From Aswan, Nassim, Preboy. From Aswan, Preboy, Nassim, and Ophir. And the stallions, Marcian, the offspring of Aswan, Arax, Ophir. Napatol, from Aswan, Preboy, Nassim, Ophir. Tursk, from Arax, Aswan, Nassim, Preboy. Nariadni, from Arax, Nassim, Aswan, Preboy, and Ophir. Muscat, Nassim, Preboy, Ophir. If the perfect Arabian horse could be created, it would be the unity of the best of every source. This Count Stroganoff and Lady Anne Blount intended to do, as did breeders in Poland, France, and Egypt. Tursk, in our century, has been unique in its accomplishments. Horses from Tursk are a new source of combined excellence. They offer a combination of qualities developed from a breeding and training program carefully, even ruthlessly followed, and founded on the greatest treasures the Arabian desert had to offer. Tursk has none better than the horses presented here and available in America. They are the happy unity of the greatest bloodlines. They are the horses that will complement and enhance any breeding program that seeks the combined characteristics of action and beauty. Where does the future of American Arabian horse breeding lie? As always, with pedigrees written in desert sand, and now propagated by the descendants of Aswan, Arax, Nassim, Preboy, Ophir. Truly immortal treasures.